Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. And tonight we are going to be making an easel card. This is a technique I always thought was complicated, but turns out it's rather simple. It's really only one extra score line from a regular card. So come along with me and we'll craft together. The concept of an easel card is when you open it up, it has a little prop inside, so the card stands up like an easel. And these cards are great for any occasion. To start, I need a piece of cardstock. This is Rococo Rose that is 8.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. And I'm going to score it 2 times. I'm going to bring over my paper trimmer and score. And so on the 8.5 inch side, I'm going to score at 2 1/8. And then 4 1/4, which would be my center point of the card. And that's really all the scoring I have to do. I'm then going to fold on that 4 1/4 inch line, and then again on the 2 1/8. Next, I'm going to take a piece of designer series paper that is 5 1/4 by 4. This is what I consider the standard insert for a card, and normally if I were making a card I'd be using a piece of plain cardstock so I could write my message, but with an easel card I'm taking a slightly different route. So I'm going to take my adhesive, my Stampin' Seal, and I'm going to put this on the inside of the card. So again, feels a little unusual, but it makes a beautiful statement when the card is finished. And then, before I assemble the rest, I'm going to do just a little bit of stamping. I have a piece of white cardstock that is 5 1/4 by 1 3/4. And this is going to fit on the inside of the card, and this can be my sentiment piece. So for this particular card, I'm just going to stamp a little accent on my sentiment piece and leave room to write a message. So this stamp, this flourish, I call it, is from our Ornate Garden suite. So there we go. I stamped that in the matching Rococo Rose, and I'll stamp my envelope corner with that as well. And if you'd like to see a catalog or shop online, please be sure to visit my website at thefaithfulstamper.stampinup.net. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. So now I'm going to take my adhesive and just simply attach this panel to the inside of the card, and that way when I'm ready I can write my message right there on the inside of the card. For the front of the card, I have 2 pieces of coordinating designer series paper. These are the same size as that white panel that we just attached inside. They are 5 1/4 inches wide by 1 3/4 inches tall. Now, depending on the kind of designer series paper or printed paper you're using, when you cut these, just be mindful for your placement on the front of the card. If you have a geometric print, for example, you'll want to watch which piece you attach where, because otherwise your pattern might not line up the way you like. For this overall floral, I don't have to worry quite so much. So a little more adhesive here, and I'll attach the first panel. And then the bottom panel. This card is not very stamp intensive. It could be if you chose to, depending on the design you'd like to use, but it is totally up to you. Next, I have a rectangle of basic black. This is 4.5 inches wide by 3 1/4. And then I have a whisper white rectangle, which is just 1/4 inch smaller. And I actually used one of our rectangle stitched shapes to cut this out, and then after I cut the Whisper White rectangle out, I ran it through my embossing machine to give it this beautiful embossed look. So these I'm just going to layer together. I'm using a little extra adhesive on this piece since it is raised, because I want to make sure it's not going anywhere on the front of my card. And you could use any shape you liked for the front of your card. It could be a circle, an oval, any kind of shape at all. I'll show you some different ideas in the samples. The key to this card is this step right here. When you attach whatever shape you might be using, rectangular or otherwise, watch your dimensional placement. Because if you put dimensionals all over the back, you're going to glue the whole panel to the card, and then it'll force the card to open flat like a regular card. We want to keep this hinge in place. So when I put my dimensionals on the back of my rectangle, I need to keep them towards the bottom. Or when I flip it over, it turns out it's the top. But I will say, if I was going to make a mistake, this is where I would do it. And when I put my first sample together, I immediately stuck dimensionals all over the whole thing and glued it to the front of the card. So don't do that. Learn from my mistake. So then, with my dimensionals down towards the bottom of this panel, I'm going to attach it to the front of the card. And then, when I open the card, I still have the ability to open it on that hinge without the dimensionals showing. So for your card, you could use stamped images if you like. For this card, I chose to use one of our designer series paper, and I colored it with our alcohol markers, our Stampin' Blends. So you can see this is a piece of the designer series paper. You can tell where I cut out my shapes over here. And I just decided I wanted some of the floral images, and I cut them out after I colored them. And I'll show you a couple different versions here in a moment. But I could have easily stamped an image and placed it right on here as well. So if you don't have designer series paper to color, or you don't have a stamp set, you have options. So back to my dimensionals. And I'm just going to put a couple on my flower, and then I'm going to position this on the front of the card. I think I like it this way. And I think for this one, I'm not going to go in the center like I did with my other cards. For example, exact same flower, different look to each card based on where I put the flower. So now the last step for this card is to give it that easel effect, because you'll see if I open it, it wants to close itself. So I pre-stamped and pre-cut 2 stitched ovals, one small in Whisper White, one slightly larger in Basic Black. And I'm going to layer these together with my adhesive. And then this gets popped with dimensionals. And this just slight lift with the dimensionals is what provides you with the easel effect for your card. You want to flip your card open, and you can position this, I wouldn't go more than the midpoint. The higher you position your prop, I'll call it, the taller your card will stand up. So I like to go on the bottom half. And you could always use 2 smaller shapes or images and put them towards the sides or just offset. Or you can use one larger one here. Totally up to you. And then when you lift up the card and prop it, the card stays open and you have a beautiful effect. And again, you can see how the same one piece of designer series paper can actually give you multiple looks just based on what images you cut out. This is all from one sheet of designer series paper. Now I'll show you a few other samples. This next sample is what I was talking about with your geometric print paper. If I had reversed these two pieces of paper, I would have mostly had the same look, but it would have been a little bit off and probably would have bugged me. So if you have more of a geometric print as opposed to an all-over floral, you might just want to watch how you position your papers. And I used some stitched shapes. This is from the Stitch So Sweetly die set that you can find in our catalog for the front. And then the inside of the card, here is my sentiment piece where I can write my message. An all-over piece of designer series paper and a sweet little blueberry prop to position my card. Now this is the more horizontal orientation of the card. You can actually take the same concept and make a vertical card. For this, you just need to alter the size of your designer series paper, your cardstock to start. Alter the size of your cardstock. So you'd want to start with a piece of cardstock that was 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and then you would score it at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. And for this one, I used more of a larger panel. It almost encompasses the whole front of the card. And I echoed inside the colors on the front. And this is my prop piece. This whole rectangle is popped up. And there's my sentiment strip for my message. But when I prop open the card, there's the top view. And I apologize, these don't come across very well on camera from this angle. But a beautiful card that someone could sit on their desk and be reminded of you, that you were thinking of them. And then last but not least, I did put together a quick Christmas card, trying to keep the spirit of Christmas alive all year long. And I wanted to show you this beautiful filigree piece. This is one of Ornate Frames. And then I just need to add my sentiment piece on the inside. I can add it here or here. And then this beautiful detailed band is what allows the card to sit open. And that would be a lovely decoration at Christmas time. So there you have it. That is our basic easel card. So I hope you enjoyed that quick technique. I'd be happy to help you with any stamping needs or questions. If you have them, you can visit me on Facebook at The Faithful Stamper or visit my website. Thank you so much for checking in with Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I hope you'd subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can see more of my crafting videos. Take care and happy crafting.